Hello, I'm glad you're back. This is the third segment of our Jumpstart workshop on positive classroom behavior or discipline. And this segment is where we get down to brass tacks. I know we all want good behavior in our classrooms, and we all dread having to correct a student or try to do something strong to maintain behavior. And I think some of the ideas I'm going to give you here might help you to know how to do this without going where I went when I was first a teacher, the aggressive method where maybe blowing up, or things get out of hand. That really kind of ruins the environment, the learning environment actually. Something I would really recommend just right off the top is to be positive about the students. Teachers, sadly, are famous for teacher lounge talk about kids. And this kid's got this problem, and that kid's got that problem, and oh my gosh, you have this person in your classroom, oh my gosh. So I think it's important for us to right off the bat have an attitude that reaches out to the kids, that is not judgmental about the kids, that tries to see the good in each young person, and to try to find that thing in each of the students that might help you connect with them. Maybe it's NASCAR racing, or maybe it's Harry Potter, or maybe it's Pokemon. I don't know what it could be, but kids have things that they really are excited about in their lives, and if you can kind of click with them on that, that can be a very positive thing. Because one of the things that's discussed by someone I think is really a guru in these matters, his name is Jim Fay, and he has a program called Love and Logic. It's not only for teachers, it's also for families. But Love and Logic has to do with, first of all, connecting with the kids in terms of establishing a good relationship. And if we establish a good relationship, I think we are a long way along the way of having them respond to us in a positive way as a teacher and not battling us, not battling with them. His books are called Love and Logic for Teachers or Love and Logic for Parents. His name is Jim Fay again, and I would really recommend you take a look at his books online or in a bookstore. They give a lot more information than I can do in this workshop about this whole issue. Some of the handouts that we have provided for this workshop also would kind of use some of his techniques and ideas. That said, I think, I will go back to something I said earlier about this fun time at the end of class. One of the things I see teachers do in regular school classrooms is they will use recess time as a motivator. Now this really helps when maybe it's the whole class that's really kind of out of sorts, and it's not one or other kid that you're trying to address, but it's like the whole group just seems to not be paying attention or talking too much or whatever else. And as a teacher, to yell and scream at the whole group is not appropriate. But just to say to them, I have a really good activity plan at the end of class, but we're not able to do that apparently because the time is ticking away and I haven't gotten through my lesson. So I just wanted to reinforce that idea, which is, I think, a way to motivate the students, because for the most part as catechists you don't have graded cards. I don't know, maybe you have some kind of progress report that you send home to parents. If you have that, that would be very helpful. Possibly you're emailing the parents if there's something happening. But for the most part, we don't have all those motivators that are there in school situations to make sure that we have something to offer the kids, or actually a consequence for them if they don't exhibit the appropriate behavior. But there's a three-step approach to any particular student, or maybe just 2 or 3 students that are misbehaving. And I like this approach quite a bit, because I think it helps maybe emphasize the behavior and not the student. So you're not judging a student, but you're focusing on a behavior. And so I think this approach does that, and it tries not to, at least initially, tries not to show the student up or embarrass the student. So the first step in the 3-step approach of addressing behavior that's problematic would be just walking up to them and quietly pointing out the desired behavior that's on your chart, or a way that they're stepping beyond the boundaries, saying, you agreed to do this. I see you're not able to handle this right now. Or just to point out the behavior directly. You did not raise your hand before you wanted to speak, or you're not listening to the person who's trying to speak to the group. Or I gave some instructions, but you're not following the instructions. Something to just remind them of what they promised to do. That would be for starters. And as quietly as you can do that, it's all the better. The next level here is to bring it up to the group. Ask the group in general, what's the rule that we have here? What is the rule that fits this situation? So-and-so is doing this, what's our rule? Or the whole class is doing this, what's the rule that we've decided we're going to try to uphold? And again, it reminds everybody of that. You come back to that. And a lot of times, just doing that will take care of things. 2 things about this. You have to make sure you do it fairly to all the kids. I know that we always have one student we like better than the others, and we really can't let that student get away with anything that the student that might be a little more of a troublemaker does, because if that gets started, that's a problem. Also, consistently, just to do, week in and week out, you're always using the same process and really enforcing the rules in the same way. And then the next step is, if they've been reminded and then it comes back again and the behavior is repeated, have an immediate consequence. And whatever that consequence is, it's best if it fits the behavior itself. So if they are maybe pushing and shoving with the person that's next to them, you separate the 2. Or if they keep talking to the people around them, you sit them up in the front of the room. Or if they're not following instructions, you might give them a little extra work. Or if they are not paying attention to the reading, you might have them repeat or summarize what's been said. So you're trying to not just say to the student, Johnny quit this, Johnny quit that. And that eventually ends up being an endless cycle of reminding, and the student just kind of goes right back to the same behavior. So some kinds of consequences. And the consequences can get more and more serious as they go along. If there's a particular student that just keeps on keeping on, the first consequence might be just a reminder. The second consequence might be a moving of the chair or putting them in a safe seat or a timeout. The third consequence might be having them do some work on their own. Maybe they can't be in the group, but they have to do some written work on their own in the room. That you say, okay, I want you to write this paragraph out. The next consequence would be actually contacting their parents and talking to their parents about the issue, if it's ongoing, more than one class. Eventually, if there's a student that just is so disruptive, I think it's very helpful if in a catechetical program, in a PSR program, you have someone who would be a volunteer that would take care individually of those students that just cannot handle the individual situation. So you send them out, and there's a special room where they would sit quietly with Mrs. So-and-so, who that's her job, to take care of students who just can't remain in the classroom situation. You have to figure some of this out yourself and how you're going to do it. Have a plan, though, and follow the plan. I know it takes some discipline sometimes on your part to follow the plan. You may even have a sheet of paper in front of you that has these steps on it, and we'll have that in some of the handout material that we have with the program here, and you can decide yourself. There's a lot of options here. You can decide yourself how you're going to do this. Another thing that's important, though, in this whole process is to make the student responsible for their own behavior. So instead of getting angry at a student, you can say, Dan, do you know what the rule is on this? What are you going to do? And come to an agreement with the student. Talk to them after class if possible. I know when I taught high school, I had 6 or 7 periods of religion throughout the day. By the 7th period, I was tired, and so was the students. And in that 7th period, this particular year, I had what I referred to as the sweat hogs. They were students who, they were just not really trying very hard sometimes. And I worked hard to remind them of the rules we had in the classroom, as I mentioned before, but also talk with them after class and try to create a contract with them, kind of a verbal contract. You think you can do better this next time. I think it's important that you think about your behavior. Do you realize you're causing some problems? And this is to make them responsible. Ask them, what are you going to do? How are you going to behave the next time around? What are you going to do about this? And I think the student can feel empowered and trusted a little bit by you on that level. I think it's very important in the end here to pray about this, to go into the whole thing realizing that kids are going to be kids and that you may have yourself misbehaved in class sometimes. It might be good to look back on that. Also, patience. Who we are with the students. It's not just me and a student or a class, but I represent something. I represent the church. I represent Christianity, faith. And so how I interact with the student, and particularly how I deal with problems, makes a whole lot of difference. With all that said, I just really encourage you to talk to other people who are experienced teachers, get as much help as you can, ask questions, go online, find material on this. There's a lot of material out there, and I just encourage you to have patience with yourself as well. I want to pause again at the end, we're closing out at the end, and just ask you to think about this final question. How have you in the past approached these discipline issues? Are there some things you'd like to change? Are there some ideas that we've shared here that you feel like, wow, I think I might try that. I think that might be helpful. And, just write that on the worksheets. And, again, you can send those worksheets into the Religious Ed office. The address and everything is on the material that you have. And feel free to email me if there's any further information that you're interested in or some further workshops that you might be interested in. With that, I'll say so long.